Determining a safe distance between a transformer and a temporary pole involves several factors, including the transformer's voltage, the pole's ampere interrupting capacity or AIC rating, and applicable local regulations. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, does not provide a specific distance requirement between transformers and temporary poles. However, it mandates that all electrical installations adhere to sound engineering practices and that all equipment is properly grounded. IEEE Standard C2-2023, also known as the National Electrical Safety Code, or NESC, suggests maintaining a minimum distance of 10 feet between a transformer and a temporary pole. This distance can potentially be reduced if the temporary pole has adequate grounding and protection against direct contact with the transformer. Local jurisdictions may impose specific regulations concerning the safe distance between transformers and temporary poles, so it's essential to consult local authorities to determine if any additional requirements exist. In the given scenario, the transformer's AIC rating is 33,000, while the temporary pole's AIC rating is 22,000. The inspector's concern arises from the possibility that the temporary pole might not withstand a fault current exceeding its AIC rating. Such a scenario could lead to the pole's failure, posing a safety risk. To address this concern, consider the following options. Firstly, increase the AIC rating of the temporary pole. Installing a temporary pole with a higher AIC rating, matching the transformer's 33,000 AIC rating, is one potential solution. Secondly, increase the distance between the temporary pole and the transformer. Moving the temporary pole further from the transformer reduces the likelihood of a fault current exceeding the pole's AIC rating. Thirdly, install a protective device. Implementing a protective device, like a fuse or circuit breaker, between the transformer and the temporary pole can provide protection. This device would trip in the event of a fault current, safeguarding the temporary pole from potential damage. Ultimately, the optimal course of action depends on the specific details of the installation. Consulting with a qualified electrician is crucial to determining the more suitable solution for the situation. Several factors contribute to the determination of a safe distance. Firstly, voltage levels. Higher voltage transformers typically require greater clearance distances due to the increased risk of arcing and flashover. The specific voltage class of the transformer, such as 120 volts, 208 volts, 240 volts, 277 volts, 480 volts, or higher, will dictate minimum approach distances as specified in safety standards. Secondly, ampere interrupting capacity, or AIC ratings. The AIC rating of the temporary pole indicates the maximum fault current it can safely interrupt without failure. It's crucial to ensure the pole's AIC rating is sufficient to handle the potential fault current available from the transformer. If the transformer's potential fault current exceeds the pole's AIC rating, the pole could fail catastrophically during a fault. Thirdly, grounding and bonding. Proper grounding and bonding are essential for minimizing the risk of electric shock and ensuring the reliable operation of protective devices. The grounding system should comply with the NEC Article 250, which outlines requirements for grounding electrode systems, grounding conductors, and bonding of metallic enclosures. Fourthly, physical barriers and guarding. Physical barriers, such as fences or enclosures, can help prevent unauthorized access to the transformer and temporary pole, reducing the risk of accidental contact with energized equipment. Guarding should comply with the NEC Article 110.31, which specifies requirements for guarding of live parts that operate at 50 volts or more. Fifthly, local codes and regulations. Local electrical codes and regulations may impose additional requirements or restrictions on the placement of transformers and temporary poles. It's crucial to consult with local authorities or a qualified electrical inspector to ensure compliance with all applicable regulations. Sixthly, engineering judgment. In some cases, engineering judgment may be required to determine the appropriate safe distance based on the specific site conditions and the characteristics of the electrical system. Factors such as soil conditions, weather patterns, and the presence of other utilities may need to be considered. When evaluating the situation and considering options such as increasing the AIC rating, increasing the distance, or installing a protective device, it is important to take a deeper look into each scenario. When increasing the AIC rating of the temporary pole, this involves replacing the existing pole with one that is rated to withstand a high fault current. This is a direct approach that ensures the pole itself can handle the potential fault current from the transformer. However, several practical considerations must be addressed. Firstly, cost. Higher AIC-rated equipment is typically more expensive, so the budget for the temporary installation needs to be considered. Secondly, availability. A temporary pole with the required AIC rating might not be readily available, potentially causing delays in the project. Thirdly, compatibility. Ensure the new pole is compatible with the existing electrical system and connections. Fourthly, installation requirement. The new pole might have different installation requirements, such as different grounding or mounting methods. Moving on to increasing the distance between the temporary pole and the transformer. This approach aims to reduce the potential fault current that the pole might be exposed to by increasing the impedance between the source and the pole. Key factors to consider include, firstly, space limitations. There might be physical constraints that limit how far the pole can be moved. Secondly, voltage drop. Increasing the distance can lead to a higher voltage drop in the circuit, which might affect the performance of the equipment connected to the temporary pole. Thirdly, conductor size. The conductor size might need to be increased to compensate for the increased distance and voltage drop. Fourthly, accessibility. The new location of the pole must still be accessible for maintenance and inspection. Considering the installation of a protective device, such as a fuse or circuit breaker, this is a common method to protect downstream equipment from overcurrents. The protective device is installed in the circuit between the transformer and the temporary pole and is designed to trip and interrupt the circuit in the event of a fault. Firstly, coordination. The protective device must be properly coordinated with the transformer and the temporary pole to ensure it trips before the pole is damaged. This requires a detailed understanding of the fault current characteristics of the system. Secondly, selectivity. The protective device should be selective, meaning it should trip only for faults on the temporary pole circuit and not for faults on other circuits. Thirdly, maintenance. Protective devices require periodic maintenance and testing to ensure they are functioning properly. Fourthly, cost. The cost of the protective device and its installation should be factored into the overall project budget. NEC Article 240 provides detailed requirements for overcurrent protection, including the selection and coordination of fuses and circuit breakers. When selecting a protective device, several parameters must be considered, including the interrupting rating, the current rating, and the time current characteristics. The interrupting rating of the protective device must be equal to or greater than the available fault current at its location. The current rating of the protective device should be selected to protect the conductors and equipment it supplies, while also allowing for normal operating currents. The time current characteristics of the protective device determine how quickly it will trip in response to different levels of overcurrent. Proper coordination of overcurrent protective devices is essential for ensuring the reliability and safety of the electrical system. Coordination studies are typically performed by qualified engineers to determine the appropriate settings for protective devices to minimize nuisance tripping and ensure that faults are cleared quickly and effectively. Temporary power installations are subject to specific requirements outlined in NEC Article 590. This article covers the installation of temporary electrical power and lighting for construction, demolition, maintenance, repair, or similar activities. Key requirements include, firstly, grounding. Temporary power systems must be properly grounded in accordance with NEC Article 250. Secondly, overcurrent protection. Temporary power systems must have overcurrent protection in accordance with NEC Article 240. Thirdly, GFCI protection. Ground fault circuit interrupter or GFCI protection is required for all 125 volts, 15 amps and 20 amps receptacles that are not part of the permanent wiring of the building or structure. Fourthly, wiring methods. Acceptable wiring methods for temporary power systems include flexible cords and cables, and temporary wiring installed in accordance with NEC Chapter 3. Fifthly, disconnecting means. A disconnecting means must be provided for each temporary power circuit. Sixthly, labeling. Temporary power equipment must be clearly labeled to indicate its purpose and voltage. When working with temporary power systems, it is essential to follow safe work practices and use appropriate personal protective equipment or PPE. Electrical hazards are a significant risk on construction sites, and proper precautions must be taken to prevent accidents. Safe work practices include firstly, de-energizing equipment before working on it. Always de-energize electrical equipment before performing any work on it, and verify that the equipment is de-energized using a voltage tester. Secondly, using lockout-tagout procedures. Use lockout-tagout procedures to prevent equipment from being accidentally energized while work is being performed. Thirdly, wearing appropriate personal protective equipment or PPE. Wear appropriate personal protective equipment or PPE, such as gloves, safety glasses, and arc-rated clothing when working with electrical equipment. Fourthly, maintaining a safe work distance. Maintain a safe work distance from energized equipment and use barriers or guards to prevent accidental contact. Fifthly, inspecting equipment before use. Inspect electrical equipment before each use to ensure it is in good working condition and free from defects. Sixthly, reporting any hazards. Report any electrical hazards to a supervisor or safety professional immediately. Understanding fault current calculations is also critical in this scenario. Fault current calculations are used to determine the magnitude of the current that will flow during a short circuit or ground fault. This information is essential for selecting appropriate overcurrent protective devices and ensuring the safety of the electrical system. Fault current calculations are based on the impedance of the circuit, the voltage of the source, and the type of fault. The available fault current at a given point in the system can be calculated using Ohm's law and the impedance of the circuit elements between the source and the fault location. Factors that affect fault current levels include firstly, transformer impedance. The impedance of the transformer is a major factor in determining the available fault current. Lower impedance transformers will result in higher fault currents. Secondly, source impedance. The impedance of the utility source also affects the available fault current. Stronger utility sources with lower impedance will result in higher fault currents. Thirdly, conductor impedance. The impedance of the conductors in the circuit also contributes to the overall impedance and affects the fault current level. Fourthly, motor contribution. Motors connected to the system can contribute to the fault current during a short circuit. Understanding the principles of grounding and bonding is also crucial for ensuring electrical safety. Grounding and bonding are essential for providing a low impedance path for fault current to return to the source, which helps to trip over current protective devices and minimize the risk of electric shock. Grounding involves connecting the neutral point of the electrical system to the earth, while bonding involves connecting all metallic enclosures and equipment together to create an equipotential plane. Key aspects of grounding and bonding include firstly, grounding electrode system. The grounding electrode system consists of one or more grounding electrodes that are used to connect the electrical system to the earth. Common grounding electrodes include ground rods, ground plates, and metal water pipes. Secondly, grounding conductor. The grounding conductor connects the neutral point of the electrical system to the grounding electrode system. Thirdly, equipment grounding conductor. The equipment grounding conductor connects the metallic enclosures of equipment to the grounding electrode system, providing a path for fault current to return to the source. Fourthly, bonding jumpers. Bonding jumpers are used to connect metallic enclosures and equipment together to create an equipotential plane. Overall, selecting appropriate equipment, understanding relevant codes and standards, and implementing safe work practices are all critical to ensuring electrical safety when working with temporary power systems and transformers. In summary, when dealing with the situation of a temporary pole near a transformer, remember the importance of considering voltage, AAC ratings, and local regulations. You have several options, including increasing the AIC rating of the temporary pole, increasing the distance between the pole and the transformer, or installing a protective device. Each option has its considerations such as cost, availability, space limitations, voltage drop, coordination, and maintenance. Always consult with a qualified electrician to determine the most suitable solution for your specific installation, taking into account all relevant factors and ensuring compliance with applicable codes and standards. This will help ensure a safe and reliable temporary power system.